what you know about love. Why all the segregation, all are but one nation. Oh, let us unite as one. Let us unite as one. Tell me what you know about love. Tell me what you know about hate that keeps us separated. Tell me what you think about equal rights for all in every way. Say what you think, what you think, what you think, what you think about justice. What you know, what you know, what you know, what you know about love. Why all the segregation? We all are but one nation. Oh, let us unite as one. Let us unite as one. Oh, love. So many can testify. Love, oh, love. But you still can't satisfy. You keep on praying. You wish that day would come when there'll be equal rights and justice for every man.
"16 minutes moving away from the hour. Good morning and welcome back to the morning show. It's now time for our program, Policing with You. And this morning program is coming to you compliments National Bank. We'll get a word from our sponsors and then we'll be back.
Stop standing in long ATM lines to withdraw cash. Use your national debit or black cards to complete a wide variety of transactions at supermarkets, variety stores, gas stations, pharmacies, and more. Shop online at the most popular websites and stores for quality brands using your national debit or black cards. And take back your time to enjoy all the things that you love to do. Remember, instead of waiting in long ATM lines to withdraw cash, use your national bank cards today.
National Bank, always here.
All right, welcome back to our program, Policing with You. I'm your moderator for this program, and we have Superintendent Francis with us this morning. You know, we rotate our host, so this morning is Superintendent Francis' turn. Good morning to you, sir, and good morning to your guests, but I will not introduce them. I will leave that for you to do, and I'll be guided accordingly.
Okay. Good morning, GQ, and good morning to everyone out there in the radio audience, both on the radio, the listening audience, both on the radio, internet, and the wider diaspora. Welcome to another featured program of Policing with You. I have in the studio with me two officers, one very senior officer and another of one of his colleagues. I would not introduce them, allow them to introduce themselves. Okay. It's a very important department. He is head of the White Collar Crime Unit. It is not a department that is always in the forefront. They are more in the background, doing a lot of work in the background. But we're here today to sensitize the general public as to what they do.
And some awareness, I guess.
Some awareness as well.
Right.
So I'm going to turn over to the gentleman on my right to introduce himself.
Good morning, GQ, and good morning, Mr. Francis.
Yes.
And everybody else out there in Radio Land. I am Sergeant Watts, and I am the officer in charge of the White Collar Crimes Unit.
Okay, Sergeant Watts. Yes. And Constable
Daniel Davey, financial investigator in the White Collar Crimes Unit.
All right.
Beautiful. So you heard it. I'm here with Sergeant Watt, who is in charge of the White Collar Unit, and Detective Davey, one of his colleagues in that particular unit. Now we're going to jump straight into the question and answer segment so we can get some highlights as to what that particular unit does in the Federation. Now, tell us about the White Collar Crime Unit and what is done at your department.
So the White Collar Crimes Unit is a specialized unit of the police force. It's an investigative unit, and we are within the Crime Directorate. The unit comprises of officers from the police force, of course, and we have civilian staff who are assigned as financial analysts. We investigate a number of offences, and Mr. David would enlighten you more about what we investigate.
Yes, at the White Collar Crimes Unit, we investigate mainly financial offences, more in particularly money laundering, major fraud offences, such as larceny by servant, embezzlement. Additionally to that, we investigate offences relating to the financing of terrorism, and we also provide assistance to other agencies, both foreign and domestic. And we also conduct asset recovery investigations.
Okay, thank you very much
So-
for that. That's a whole lot of things that the unit does. Okay, it's a handful of guys, but they're hardworking and dedicated. Now, to help people better understand the offences you investigate, please explain what is fraud and what is money laundering and terrorist financing. We hear those words fly around, but we want to, like, and as sort of layman terms, to explain what is fraud, money laundering, and terrorist financing.
But as it relates to fraud, fraud is a wide range of offences. As Debbie explained just now, we investigate larceny by the servants and any offences that whereby an individual might have been defrauded and there was some level of deception would classify as a fraud. Now, as it relates to fraud investigations, the CID investigates fraud generally. However, if there's a fraud case which is complicated or those that involve huge sums of monies, then it comes to the white collar crimes for investigations. As it relates to money laundering, a textbook definition would be where person or persons involved in illegal processes, whereby money that was generated from criminal conduct is then made to appear as if it came from some legitimate source. That is what money laundering would be classified according to the textbook. However, for St. Kitts and Nevis, money laundering would be determined by what the law says it is, which is where a person engages in money, in transactions which involve money or the property that came from some crime.
Okay.
Okay.
It also involves the receiving or the possessing, transferring in, out of St. Kitts or bringing into St. Kitts or disguising or concealing any money that is the proceeds of a crime.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yes.
All right. And of course, we can give many examples for that.
Yes, of course. For a typical example would be, for example, if someone sold drugs, he got money for selling drugs, the person bought a car from Japan, now that car would represent the person's proceeds of crime. So by holding that car, you commit laundering by possession of it.
Okay. Provided you could prove that.
Yes, of course.
Yes, yes, yes.
That's a very, very good example. And nice down-to-earth example. You're doing something wrong, and you get some money, and you buy certain things. You buy a house, you buy a car, you buy land, you buy a boat. The police can take it away. It's possible.
Okay.
Okay. The term asset recovery is used from time to time. Asset recovery. You mentioned it here at least once. Can you explain what actually is asset recovery?
Okay, asset recovery is basically, it is one of the major deterrents to money launderers and crime on a whole. See, generally, if someone commits an offense and the person is convicted of that offense, at the end of the trial, that's it. But when you deal with money laundering or fraud matters, we have what we call asset recovery, which comes in two parts. There's the criminal-based asset recovery, or which is also called confiscation or forfeiture, and there's the civil-based asset recovery. For criminal recovery, there is what you call forfeiture. So I will just first start by explaining what is forfeiture. So let's give an example. If someone stole $10,000 and the police investigate the case and we could look at that $10,000, then that becomes tainted property. If the person bought a vehicle with that money, it becomes tainted property as well. Now, if the person is convicted of a money laundering offense, the court could forfeit that vehicle to the state on application made by the director of public prosecution.
I get you.
So that will call forfeiture.
Right.
It's our first option and the best option, as the state will own the asset in question. Of course, at the end of the case, if there's a true victim, for instance, in an offense involving, like let's say, theft, where there's a victim, at the end of the forfeiture hearing, the victim will be compensated as first option. But if there's no victim, like in case of drug trafficking, where there's no true victim or person as a victim, then the state would get that money.
Okay.
Well, at the state, it goes to the forfeiture fund, but
Yeah, I understand. I understand. That's how it's termed.
yes.
Okay.
Now, confiscation as its term suggests, is not actually how it sounds. Confiscation opposes to forfeiture in that if you can't locate that money that the person stole. For instance, someone stole $10,000 again, the person went and party, they went travel overseas, you can't locate that cash that the person stole. However, you could locate some other property the person stole. A house that they modeled for them, or a car that they bought with their own money. Now we could restrain that vehicle. Restrain mean you could get a court order preventing the person from selling that property. So now the person now stole $10,000 and they have a vehicle that is valued at $10,000. We could ask the court to let that person pay to the state an amount that represents benefit from the crime.
Right.
So the fact that you own property will tell the court that this person owns some property and they stole some property somewhere.
So by default, whatever you owe will be compensated by what you own.
Well, the difference is that we won't own your asset. You are expected to leverage your asset or something, you know. But we won't physically take your asset from you.
Okay.
Now, if you fail to pay that compensation right here, then you would now be subjected to further imprisonment. So confiscation, we don't actually take the asset from you.
Right.
Forfeiture, we take it from you.
Okay. Okay. Understood.
You mentioned earlier about proof for and we could prove.
Yes,
that.
yes.
I must mention that the officers who work at the white collar crime unit are highly trained personnel who they have received training from a number of agencies, both locally and internationally.
Thank you for the reassurance.
Yes, I want to
Thank you. I was a bit concerned there.
Yeah.
You let that pass you real quick, yeah?
Yeah, it needs to be mentioned because
yes.
Well, as part of our recruitment policy for the department, we only transfer persons who have had experience in investigations, persons who have been senior officers. They're the ones who are considered for attachment at the white collar crimes unit.
Okay.
And at present, all of the officers here at the unit have received training, secondment at the FIU in St. Vincent, where they underwent actual police experience in investigating these matters. Most officers spent 8 weeks to 10 weeks down here. So they are actually trained and they actually specialize in this kind of work. So
Thank you, sir. For a moment there, I was wondering if that's going to go under the water there. Thank you for the reassurance.
And Sarge, I know St. Kitts have this white collar crime unit. Is that the only Caribbean territory that has it? Now you mentioned St. Vincent.
Well,
so it's across the Caribbean?
Well, across the Caribbean, you find that some of the countries in the region, in the world, you could say, they have what they call an FIU, a Financial Intelligence Unit. Now, some FIU are called hybrid FIU, which means that they could do intelligence gathering, plus they do the investigations. In St. Kitts and Nevis, we have an administrative FIU and the white collar crimes unit.
Okay.
So our unit does the investigation. So every country around the region has a unit that is equivalent to what we have in St. Kitts. However, in St. Kitts and Nevis, the white collar crime is separate from the FIU.
Okay.
The same goes to the US, and I believe in Antigua, they have their own white collar crime, or a version of that unit.
Right.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, it was important to know that because St. Kitts is in keeping with a lot of other things that are going on within the region and internationally.
Yes.
Because money laundering is taking place all over the world. Terrorist financing is taking place all over the world. And St. Kitts do not want to be a part of that. So we do have units that try our best, go above and beyond to make sure that these things do not filter into our territories.
Hence why you're here this morning, to let the public know.
Indeed.
Yeah, and you did mention terrorist financing, and I failed to give an explanation as to what that is. Now, terrorist financing basically is providing financing or financial support to any terrorist act or any terrorist organization. So basically, when someone assists some terrorists financially, you come in the offense of terrorist financing.
I understand.
And it's a serious thing.
And it's a very serious offense, of course.
Very, very
I hope our audience do as well. Back over to you, Superintendent.
Okay, we can ask one more question before we break for halftime. Penalties. Could you give us a broad overview, the approximate? I don't know if you have any documentation, but if you don't, you can give an approximate penalties for these offenses that your department investigate.
Yeah, as it relates to money laundering, I must first say that money laundering, which differs from a number of other offenses, in money laundering, you could prosecute a company or corporation, or you could prosecute a person. So you have a natural person committing laundering could be fined up to $250,000 or 20 years imprisonment or both.
Oh,
Quarter
okay.
million, right?
Right.
15.
Wow.
Whereas if it's a company involved in money laundering, it is $700,000. So it is a very serious offense, money laundering. That is. The offense of terrorist financing attracts, I believe, 14 years.
14 years, that's correct.
14 years
Or a fine of $750,000.
for a person. And if you do it on summary conviction, it will be 5 years imprisonment
$50,000.
or $50,000. Now, if it's a company involved in terrorist financing, it is $1 million.
Wow. Wow.
So
Wow.
it's a very serious offense.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so
indeed.
by virtue of the outlining the penalties in and of itself, we see that, you don't go close to those things and try to avoid it as much as possible.
I like to keep things real. That's the intent. But I guess that's why we have these guys around, because even though we have those intent, well, it should be the intent. The obvious is people still try.
But yeah, people gonna try
Yeah.
because the hearts of men are desperately wicked at times. So
So like a pastor this morning.
no. I'm not a pastor at all. I'm not blessed in that way. But all I would say is that, it's just like the normal crime. We come on the wage and we speak about those things, keep away from larceny and malicious damage and house breaking and stuff. From time to time, these things happen. And that's why we have to have investigators there to investigate the matter and put persons to justice.
Indeed.
So it's the same thing. From time to time, these serious things happen. We don't want it to happen, but 1 or 2 times people work out. That's an easy way to get by and become a millionaire overnight. And we have to have units to investigate those aspects as well.
And if you didn't know, you know now. So avoid it. Avoid it at all costs. We're going to take a break. Of course, this program is coming to you sponsored by National Bank. And when we return, I'll be guided by you in terms of when we can open the lines for callers to get in with their questions and
Yes,
concerns. Don't touch that dial. 465-2555 is the number to call when we return. And 718-577-2916.
Stop standing in long ATM lines to withdraw cash. Use your national debit or black cards to complete a wide variety of transactions at supermarkets, variety stores, gas stations, pharmacies, and more. Shop online at the most popular websites and stores for quality brands using your national debit or black cards. And take back your time to enjoy all the things that you love to do. Remember, instead of waiting in long ATM lines to withdraw cash, use your National Bank cards today.
National Bank, always here.
There is nothing good about jail. I don't want to be here.
My father told me that as far as he was concerned, I could stay in the home forever.
Our children deserve a chance for change. Children make mistakes, and child justice reform can help everyone to address these mistakes appropriately. Instead of sending a child to adult prison, let us give them alternative sentencing. We must divert our children from the court system through a holistic and systematic approach to addressing their offense and their road to rehabilitation. Rehabilitation helps child offenders to grow, change, learn from mistakes, accept responsibility, and make better choices. Reintegration of child offenders into the community after rehabilitation benefits the child, the family, and the community with a more productive citizen. Join the movement to give our children a chance for change. This message is brought to you by the USAID OECS Juvenile Justice Reform Project 2, funded by the United States Agency for International Development. For more information, log on to oecs.org/JJRP.
All right, 27 minutes, moving up to the hour of 10 o'clock. We're going to open lines in just a bit for you to get in with your questions and concerns. Superintendent, before I cross over to you, though, there's a question on my mind I would like to ask.
Yes, sir.
The gentleman here, the good gentleman, Constable Davy and Sergeant Watts, right?
Yes.
That's one like a TV show, Sergeant Watts. Forgive me. As it relates to here in St. Kitts, do you work with the financial institutions here? Like, for example, the bank. I know they have their own department as it relates to money laundering, and I'm assuming other financial institutions are doing that now because of the FRC or something like that. I think it is
FSRC.
FSRC. That's correct. Do you guys work alongside with them? How is that done?
Well, I wouldn't say we work alongside with them, but part of our work involve the production of information from banks. So we usually serve court orders on the bank to obtain information for our investigations.
Why a court order, though?
Because privacy, persons have the right to privacy of their financial information. So we need a court order to get that information from the bank.
So even though you might have legitimate reasons for investigating someone, you still have to get a document stating that you would like to get permission to do this.
It's just like going to someone's house to search a person's house. You need a search warrant for that. You need a warrant, well, for the purpose of the bank, we get a court order to order the bank to provide to us what we need.
So now that you mentioned that, is it okay for someone in the bank to call your unit and say, hey, we suspect something happening here?
No, the bank would not do that. They can't do that because they have to protect the privacy of their customers as well. However, well, as you mentioned that though, it goes the other way around. If the bank is made aware that someone is being investigated, the person at the bank, they ought not to inform that person or anybody else that the person is being investigated.
For example, I'm working at, say, X Bank.
Yes.
And I am aware that they're investigating B.
Yes.
I cannot call B and tell B that you're being investigated.
You can't call B, C, D, E, F. You can't call anybody else and inform them that B is being investigated. If you do so, and we are made aware of it, you have committed the offense of tipping off, which is a very serious offense as well. And it carries a penalty of 3 years imprisonment,
correct, yes.
or $50,000.
Wow.
What about social media?
$100,000 fine.
Sarge, social media. Everybody jump on social media
Yes.
from time to time and type this thing and send their emotions all over.
Yes,
Is that allowed?
Yeah, persons would see or might be made aware of, well, sometimes it's rumors, sometimes it's gossip, and they would take social media. And at times there might be some truth to what they're saying. Now, if you might have heard of person X might be investigated, and you go on social media and say X is being investigated for this and that. Now, what X could do, as we explained earlier, or in terms of asset recovery, X could start getting rid of his assets. So you might have went on social media and mentioned that X is being investigated. X then went and sold his assets and get rid of his assets now, preventing we from retrieving these assets, right? So you have committed a serious offense. So even though you might feel the need to be on social media and telling persons what you think you may know, you have to bear in mind that you might actually be saying something that is truthful, and you might be committing an offense of tipping off. So X might get away scot-free, and you might get away for, you might get locked up for tipping off X. So I would urge persons out there to be very mindful, especially as it relates to money laundering investigations, as the law provides some additional protection for the operations of the unit and how we investigate these offenses. So
I understand.
Okay,
it's more as of a covert operation.
Correct.
Exactly.
Okay.
Sound like one of us now.
We can open the lines if you choose.
Sure.
Well, I ask one or two questions.
Sure. And while you do that, let me just indicate that the number once again is 465-2555. And for those of you who are overseas, 718-577-2916. That's like a local call for you. Superintendent. I have to get this correct.
That's okay.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, how can, you mention company and you mention individual, but how can someone or company safeguard themselves against fraud or money laundering? Safeguard themselves.
Well, in terms of companies, I would urge persons who operate businesses in St. Kitts and Nevis or companies to do background checks upon their employees. We find most of our matters that come to us for investigations involve employees who do some level of deception and fraud. So first thing you could do is do some background check before you employ these persons in your business place. I will also urge these persons to do, when they're doing inventory, that don't only rely upon your computer system for your inventory. Do some physical stock checking. Go in there and verify that your stock is actually in there, as opposed to relying upon a computer system.
Right. So even though your data says A,
yes,
go and manually check to see if it's A.
Yes, we've seen instances whereby persons would make a report to the police and only to find out that for the last 6, 7, 8 years they've been all the way down on the stock and they've been going according to their computerized data. They have not made a physical check in there. Yeah, do you want to add anything you could?
Regular audits as well. They could perform those as well.
Yeah, that is very important because we do find that when we do get a report, it is always like, well, most of the time it's years later. And if they had simply did audit yearly, you might have found that this person could have been caught way earlier and prevent this level of fraud from taking place.
Right.
Yes. That's relation to a company.
What about individuals?
Well, for individuals, I would urge individuals to, when things sound too good to be true, you have to be mindful of these things. I mean, we have seen many instances whereby persons are approached by individuals not locally, I'm talking about what we have seen, trends we have seen internationally. Persons are approached by individuals on social media, and they are asked to conduct financial transactions on their behalf. Sometimes it's genuine, not genuine per se, but sometimes it's real transactions in that they ask you to send $2,000 to a person. They will send you $2,000. You could take a portion for yourself and send the rest to a friend, wherever that friend may be. Now, oftentimes the person might be using you now to finance some terrorist activity or some terrorism. So
wash the money.
Yes. Person might actually feel that there's a win-win because they get some level of compensation, but you could actually be financing or assisting financing of a terrorist act or terrorism on a whole. So I would urge persons to be mindful of these activities right here, and of course, don't be too drawn into all these multi-level marketing, what they call them, the pyramid schemes and so forth. These things are not sustainable, and we have seen an emergence of that last year in August also. And we went on the social media. We also did a press release together with the FSRC and the FIU. However, persons did not take heed of this press release, and they still continued. And then our officers flooded with reports sometime in September and October of the year. Persons were making report that they haven't gotten back their so-called investment. So these things, I will say, on pyramid scheme, our laws in St. Kitts don't necessarily criminalize the mere existence of a pyramid scheme, but we do have laws that make it illegal based on the activity of that scheme.
Right.
So persons need to be mindful that when they get this invitation to take part in these investments, the so-called investments, where they promise high returns, they just need to be careful, because although it might not be a crime in St. Kitts and Nevis, it might be a crime in another country that you plan to migrate to at some point. And bearing in mind that if an act is considered to be illegal in one jurisdiction, if you are on social media advertising your involvement in that act, of course the country have the right to look at you differently. If you try to migrate to the country, visit the country, they could look at you as someone involved.
That's what you're saying. Gentlemen, we were just receiving a call there. You can call back 465-2555. I'll interrupt the gentleman and take your call in the meantime. Back over to you, Superintendent.
Okay, yes, Sergeant. I'm glad that Sergeant Watts made mention of those examples. To bring it home a little bit more.
I'll interrupt you now.
That's okay.
Good morning. You are live. Yes. Good morning. You're live. Well, I hope this is not.
Yeah, from the special.
Yes. Go
Hello,
ahead.
You
Yes.
hear me?
Yeah, I'm hearing you now.
Yes. Yeah, good morning, GQ. And good morning to Superintendent Francis there and the rest from the special branch in the police, in the investigation, crime and money laundering and all those things. But my little input to you all this morning. Now, I always hear about wash money. Like you have some money and you get it from drugs, cocaine or whatever. And you got maybe $250,000. And you just got it like that. But you put the money in the bank piece, gradually. You understand? And that money build up, maybe you ain't put on the whole $250,000 in one bank. You put it to different bank. And that money became legal because he got to the bank, he ain't illegal no more. He ain't no blood money no more, or drug money no more. So give me a little input on that, please.
Well, thanks for your question, caller. What you just explained is actually what money laundering is. It is the attempt to make your dirty money appear as if it's clean money. So generally, that is what these drug dealers would do. They would commit a crime. They would attempt to disguise the money by making calculated deposit on their account, different banks. They might purchase property, purchase vehicle. But I will say, whatever you purchase with that money is considered to be tainted property, and you are committing money laundering. So that money is still not clean. It just appears to be clean. As long as you could prove that it is dirty money, you could be prosecuted for money laundering.
All right. Back over to you, Superintendent.
Okay. I was saying that I'm glad that Sergeant Watt mentioned you can disturb at any point.
Yeah, I know.
The callers are important.
I know.
I'm glad that he mentioned the example a little earlier. I know sometime last year, you persons were going on and say if you invest $500, you get back 3-4 times the amount. Something like that you were mentioning.
Yes.
Yeah. So he's basically saying that that's not the right thing to do. And I'm also glad that he mentioned about individuals in the past, because I remember at some point I got a report when I was working in the unit, and a lady in the countryside is indicating that somebody actually, she used to deposit money and send it to England for a friend, and only to find out, at the end of the day, this friend in England was involved in something, illegal, because persons in England, authorities in England, start to investigate and reach out to her. So it bring home the point not to be used.
Yes.
Just because you're going to get a little $20, you're going to send 500, 600 US every month to somebody in England that you don't know. You're just being used by the neighbor, used by your friend. The question is why that friend can't send the money. So you have to put yourself and think logically and say, okay, I might be getting at $20 because they're going to give you something to encourage you. I might be getting at $20 on the side to send money to somebody I don't know. When the question arises, because everything is digital and everything has a history. So when they turn back and we've realized over the past 3-4 years, you send some X amount of $1,000 to Tom in England or Tom in America or such and such in Canada, Australia. Who is that person? And you start to say, I don't know. And it sounds wrong, and then you become under the microscope and you're in problems. So one persons out there in society to do not become victims like that.
All right, let's take this next call. Good morning, you're live.
Am I live?
Yes, you are. Good morning.
Where does misappropriation of clients' funds comes in?
All right, thank you for your question. Go ahead, gentlemen.
Yeah, misappropriation of funds is an offense, of course, if an individual is entrusted with property of another person for a particular purpose and you do something else with that money, you commit an offense. Yes.
Whether you know it or not.
Well, the thing is, if you are entrusted with property of another person, let's say, for example, Davy gave you $10 to do a particular act, and you take that $10 and do something else for your own benefit or someone else's benefit, you commit an offense. But if, let's say, Davy gave you $10 just now to do some act for him, and you intend to receive $10 from, let's say, retrieve from your bag, which is outside, so you use that $10 to purchase something for yourself, but with the intention of repaying David money because it is out there in your bag. If the police were to come on you at this moment right here, they can't say you commit an offense because your true intention wasn't to deceive and defraud Davy. It's just that you utilize Davy's fund because you expected to get the funds out there.
Okay.
But if you have no intention of getting back the funds and there's no means of getting back the fund, it is an offense. And of course, it involves you getting the benefit, so then you virtually will have committed the offense of money laundering as well.
I think that's more of a layman's term. That's why I deliberately asked that question. Yeah, before it's a little too vague, but now we have a vivid example of what that means. Over to you, Superintendent.
Yeah, I know these terminologies might be a little over the top to the general public, but we just want to bring it home to say don't get involved in illegal activities and understand what you're doing when you're doing it. Just try to be as honest as you could. One last question I would have for the sergeant and his team. What about businesses? What advice do you have for businesses where these type of crimes are concerned? I know he mentioned it earlier, but I don't know if you want to elaborate a little bit more.
Yeah, one of the things that we see happening often is that the businesses, we know that their true intention is to get back whatever funds that they lost, because it is how business goes, But oftentimes, I find that they will take a very long time to get to the police. By the time they get to the police, we can't trace the funds that were, there's no asset to actually restrain. So reporting the matter, or at least bringing it to the police attention earlier, is good advice right here.
Right.
It's advisable.
Right.
So if you suspect an individual might have committed some act and you have evidence to prove it, you don't have to necessarily instruct the police or ask the police to investigate at this stage. But it's good to seek advice earlier on, as opposed to do your own investigation, compromise the actual evidence that you may have, And when you can't get back your money, you come to the police 2 years down the line.
Right.
It's something we've seen happening over the time, and oftentimes, had they come to the police earlier, we could have given some good advice and probably retrieved more of the asset that was stolen.
So, Rich, I mean, collecting data and statistics is very important for you.
It is. It is.
Can you share some of that with us, if you can?
Well, what we're asking for, I mean, at present, I will say that we only have arrested 8 persons with and charged them with money laundering offences. Well, 9 persons. That is in St. Kitts and Nevis for the well, since whenever. Just in the last 2 years, we arrested 8 persons and charged them with money laundering offences. So you might think that you haven't heard much about money laundering, but it is there. Persons are being investigated, persons are being arrested. It's just that it's not as common as you may think. Now, as it relates to money laundering, like I said, we have some special treatment according to the law.
Right.
You find that for money laundering offences, the police can't just pick you up and charge you for money laundering. Only the director of public prosecution could instruct that someone be charged with money laundering.
Okay.
So the Persons of Crime Act gives the director of public prosecution the sole prerogative to prefer charges of money laundering. So we do the investigations. We submit a report to the DPP, and he would give us the advice or instructions to proceed with money laundering charges. So that probably could account for why the limited amount of laundering charges being preferred.
Okay, I understand. I understand the limitations that you're working with. Yes. Before you go, you might have said this earlier, but for the sake of clarification, white collar crime, money laundering.
Yes.
Is it the same? Is it different?
White collar crime is like a classification of crimes, I guess. It involves crime that doesn't have actually like violence or so. Money crime, paper crime, office crimes, you could say, financial crimes.
Financial crimes.
White collar crime is just a terminology used to define these sort of crimes. So fraud and money laundering, they are all considered to be, you could say, the office crimes, you know, so considered to be white collar crimes.
Right. Now, forgive me for my ignorance when I asked about the statistics, gentlemen. I'm not familiar with the terms and how it's laid out, so I was hoping that you could have given me a general synopsis in terms of, like, if you had to present something for the year 2021 so far, this is what our statistics were looking like.
Well, like I said, or like how David said earlier, and like how you said earlier, we do a lot of covert investigation. So even with the wider police force, our statistics is limited. We don't just publicize our statistics unless we reach the point whereby we are satisfied that we are making an arrest or we have made an arrest. So for that purpose, I will not disclose any further details.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Thank you, sir. No, you're talking. Oh, we lost that caller. Good morning, you live.
Yeah, good morning.
Yes, morning.
This is the program where they're talking about the traffic.
Oh, you're probably looking at the television. That was from yesterday. Right now we have policing with you. But thank you for your call, though.
Oh, because I got a problem with it around about the hour.
Yeah, I understand. But that will have to be discussed another time. Next week we'll be back on 8:30, and we do apologize for that. I'm hoping that they would have up rebroadcast on that program. If they don't, they should do that right now. Let me just back check and see what's going on there. In the meantime, let me take this next call. Hi, good morning. You're live.
Hi, good morning. I'd like to make a quick comment.
Yes, go ahead. We're listening.
Okay, who is Jico?
Yes, it is.
This is Kenneth here, man. Listen, I noticed they don't have, when I drive in other country, they have speed bump across the road, like how we have in St. Kitts, right? But you don't have a sign there alerting people, like maybe you are 100 feet away from the speed bump, that there is a speed bump. And I think that should be addressed, because for me and you, sometimes we forget the speed bump as local. What happened when we walk?
Well, let me interrupt you there, Kenneth. Sorry, I do apologize, Kenneth. But I realize you're looking at the program on television, and I just checked, and it's I'm seeing in the corner here now a rebroadcast. So, Kenneth, we do apologize, but that program that you're looking at there, that was from yesterday morning, with Sergeant McGuire and Constable Liebert Shiverton. So I think we're going to call it that for our calls for now. We do apologize to our listeners, those of you who are looking at television and thinking that the show is live. But if you look in your top left-hand corner, you will see a rebroadcast. That was from yesterday. Superintendent?
Yes. What I would do at this juncture, I would invite closing remarks from the team here. I would first invite closing remarks from Detective Davey and then Sergeant Watt.
Well, what I would like to say is, I would like the listening audience to know that money laundering is basically using ill-gotten gains and trying to integrate it into the financial systems. It just sounds complicated, but it's actually just in layman's terms. It could come from any means. Once a person has benefited and try to use their benefit, then it could be considered as money laundering. And what are you saying?
Yes, I would just urge persons to be responsible with their financial activities. Something I didn't mention earlier, but it's very important, is that persons often receive gifts from other person. Someone give you a gift, the person doesn't work anywhere, they bought you a car, or they give you some cash somewhere. If you receive that property and you know that this individual is not gainfully employed, that individual is known to be a drug dealer or so, you are in a sense committing laundering by receiving a tainted gift. So it might be to the discretion of the DPP to charge or not, but the fact is the evidence will say you commit an offense as well. And like you could see, the offense of laundering is actually quite severe, and the penalties are very, you could see it's 20 years imprisonment or $250,000. So I would urge persons to be responsible when receiving gifts, and of course bearing in mind that persons may try to use you to commit the offenses of terrorist financing. Just be responsible with your financial activities.
Okay, well, I want to take the time out to thank Sergeant Watch and Detective Davey for coming here on the radio program with us to enlighten us on the work that they do at the white collar crime unit. And we hear this word white collar crime being used loosely, and some of us don't even know what it means. But I'm glad that Sergeant Watt and Davey was able to come today to enlighten us as to certain things that they do. They weren't able to even touch the surface on what they do, because they're there in the background doing a whole lot of work. But we want to thank them for the hard work that they're doing, and we want to thank them for the insight that they gave to us today. And I want to join Sergeant Watt and Detective Davey and say, be careful in how you take things from people, and how you spend your money and those things of that nature. Things are hard now, but persons don't want to be taken advantage of. Indeed. And don't run into these Ponzi scheme and these get rich quick schemes and stuff like that, right? But I want to thank Sergeant Watt and Davey. I want to thank the listening public for listening to us.
And viewing. And
viewing public. And I also want to thank the callers for taking time out to call in. And GQ, see you when I see you.
That sounds good to me.
Tell me what you know about that keeps us separate.
Stop standing in long ATM lines to withdraw cash. Use your national debit or black cards to complete a wide variety of transactions at supermarkets, variety stores, gas stations, pharmacies, and more. Shop online at the most popular websites and stores for quality brands using your national debit or black cards. And take back your time to